Well, this is day three's lesson online for amazing Android robotics. And we are going to learn a lot today in day number three, our session number three. We're actually going to get the robots that we built last time to move around. Well, hopefully we'll do that. So here's what we're going to do today. And we got a long laundry list of what we need to go through. We're going to learn to connect your phone, your Android device, to a Bluetooth robot. And then we're going to import a saved project, a project that I call a template that's going to help you make your robot move into the app inventor we've been using. And then we're going to create a remote control interface on App Inventor. So we're going to wind up with some buttons on your phone that are going to be able to move the robot around. We're going to discover the purchase of a procedure. We don't want that there. Let's get rid of that. We're going to discover the purchase of a procedure and what that's all about. Real important concept in computer program. I'm going to explain to you how the motors work on your robot. We're going to send certain values to the motors to make them go forward, backward, fast, slow, whatever. Then we're going to use procedures. We're going to write our own procedures to send commands to the robot. And you're going to write your own procedures that control the robot forward, backward, left, and right. And we're going to tie those written procedures to the remote control interface that we set up. So a really, really busy day here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our Android phone. And here's mine. I've got it up on my computer screen that I'm recording here. And the first thing we need to do is set up the Bluetooth. Grab your robot and turn it on, and you'll see flashing either red. Some of them got a green light. I think one of them's even got a blue light. But you see a flashing light, and that's what you want to see. And that flashing light actually indicates the status of the Bluetooth receiver that's on your robot. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. But right now, we want to go to our phone and push the settings button. If your settings is not on the front page of your phone yet, you'll find that under the apps. Then we want to push wireless and networks. And we'll go in there and we'll make sure that the check mark is next to the Bluetooth. So if that check mark is not checked, just click right there and it will turn your Bluetooth receiver and sender on. Right below that is something called Bluetooth settings. So after your Bluetooth is on, click on Bluetooth settings. And that's going to take you to this screen, and it's going to start scanning for Bluetooth devices. And you can see right here a real funny number came up, and it was reading the information from my robot. My robot is number 6352. It's printed right on the robot. I want to pair with this device. Now, if you're in the classroom, you might see a whole bunch of robots come up here. Or other devices, if you've got, say, a Bluetooth printer or whatever, you want to choose the robot and the number that is your robot. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to ask you to type a PIN to pair with Robot 6352. Your PIN is actually the number of your robot. So my PIN is 6352. Yours will be whatever number is on your robot. It's a 4-digit number. And then we're going to push OK. Down here it will say paired but not connected, and that's exactly what we want. Then we're going to just go back home on our phone, and we're going to set our phone aside for a little while. So next, we want to head to roboticsisfun.com. So go ahead and put that in your URL bar up here, roboticsisfun.com. And this website should come up. And if you're watching this right now, go ahead and pause this video and get to roboticsisfun.com and put it in another tab. And go to Android Robotics Challenge 2015 on this website. This is where all the important files are for this class. And at the very top, I've got a link to the amazing Android Robotics App Inventor template. Okay, so this is a program you're going to download to your computer and then bring into App Inventor. So let's just click on that, and it brings you to my OneDrive. It's a cloud hard drive, basically, where I store stuff for the robotics classes, and you can see all kinds of robotics stuff here. But the thing we want is this amazing Android Robotics template. You can see that it has a check mark on it already. Up here, we're just going to click download, and that's going to download that. You can see it down in the corner here. If you're using Chrome, it's going to look like that. You can see it just downloaded to my computer. So now I've got that template downloaded. I can go to App Inventor. I've got App Inventor on another tab here. You can do the same thing. Open another tab, away from this video, maybe pause it and get it going here. And here we are at App Inventor. So what we want to do, I've got this application. This is actually that application that we wrote where it changes colors and we've got the two buttons. Well, I should really throw that away. I am going to go here to Projects and import Project AIA from my computer. We just downloaded an AIA. So we're going to import project from my computer, and we're going to choose a file, and we're going to navigate out to wherever that downloaded. And you can see I've downloaded it a couple of times here. So I'm going to choose the amazing Android Robotics template and open that and say OK. And what that does is we're uploading now this application to your App Inventor. And you can see we've got two buttons in that as well. We've got a select BT module, which means Bluetooth, and then we've got a disconnect. So these two buttons are already set up for you to connect to your robot via Bluetooth and to disconnect from your robot via Bluetooth. So the goal of this application is going to be setting up some buttons so we can move our robot around. We're going to learn something new here. We know how to pull buttons out already and put them on our screen, but we're going to need to lay out our buttons in a little different fashion this time, where it kind of makes sense as to where forward, backward, left, right is. So we're going to click here on the Layout tab under our palette, and we are going to take this table arrangement and drag it onto our screen and put it above the Select BT module button. And you can see it draws a little screen. And what this does, it sets up kind of a table that has columns and it has rows on it. So we're going to wind up with, say, a left button over here, a right button over here, a forward button here, and a backward button here. And also we're going to drag these two things into this layout as well. So to do that, we need 1, 2, 3 columns. So we're going to set this for 3 columns. Rows go the long way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows by the time we're done. Now, if you're not sure what that's about, that's okay. Just put a 3 in columns, put a 5 in rows, and you'll see in just a minute how this works. Okay, so now we've got a table that has 3 columns, 5 rows. Let's go back to our user interface, and we're going to pull out a button, and let's just say that this button is going to be the forward button. So it would make sense to put that there in the middle on the top, and we need another button, and let's say that this is going to be the left button. It would make sense to put that on the left side in the middle. And you can see a little bit here now how our columns and rows are working. And there in our third column, we've got another button. And we're going to pull out yet another button. So there we've got 4 buttons. And we need to identify what these buttons do, because right now this one says text for button 1 and text for button 2 and so forth. So what we need to do is first rename all of these buttons to describe what they do, and you'll see why that's important here in just a minute. So I'm going to rename this one to forward and say OK. And tell you what, I'm going to pause my video right now, and I'm going to rename all these buttons and then come back, and they'll all be renamed. So I want you to do the same. So I've got all my buttons here renamed under my components. I've got one forward, left, right, and backward. Now we need to change the text on these buttons, and we do that over here under Properties. And there's our text property, and we're going to change the wording on that button to forward. So this is real similar to what we were doing over in the components, but we're changing the actual words on the button. Now, when we do this, we'll see that these buttons actually are going to wind up shrinking. Here, let's go to this one and put our word left in here. And you can see that that button shrank to the size of the words, and we really don't want that. So down at the bottom of the properties here, we can change the width here to a certain number of pixels. That, of course, is the little dots that make up the screen, and we're going to make that 100 pixels wide. And while we're at it, let's make it nice and big because we're going to be pushing these to make our robot move around. Let's make it 100 pixels tall. So I want you to go through. I'm going to pause again here and go through and do this to all my buttons. I'm going to make it, put the proper word in there and make it 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and then I'll be back. So we're pausing again and be. Okay, so we're back, and I've resized my buttons, and I've put the proper wording in each button, and now you can see we've got nice big buttons for forward, right, left, and backward. And feel free to go ahead and change the properties of any of these things that you want. If you want your buttons to look different, be a different color, you can put a different background color in this table arrangement. You can do a lot of different things. Now we're also going to drag in this select Bluetooth module button and this disconnect button. That's why we needed 5 rows here, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's all set up, and we're just going to set that aside for now. And that is going to be all ready to go. We need to head over here into our blocks area, and you can see some of that code that came with this template. There's all sorts of little things here, and the reason they look the way they do is I did what's called collapse these. So they're fairly long lines of code, some of them, and I collapsed them into little segments like this. If you right click on this and click on expand block, you can see what's happening with this command here called analog send. All kinds of stuff going on, and I didn't want to have to explain to you what all that was or have you remember it anyway. Actually, I will explain it later, but there's all kinds of stuff going on. We encapsulated this into something called a procedure, and I'm just going to go ahead and recollapse that. A procedure. And if you click on this button over here called procedures, you can see there's all kinds of procedures that are already set up for you. Now, what is a procedure? Well, let's open this up again and look at this. This is something that we want to be able to do over and over again, and this is something called analog send. It is we're going to send a certain number to our robot, an analog number. We'll get into later what exactly analog means. We won't do it today, but later on we'll talk about the difference between analog and digital. But this is something we want to do over and over and over again. And we don't want to have to do all these different blocks and put in all these different numbers every time we want to do an analog send, because we're going to be doing it a whole bunch of times. So rather than repeat this over and over and over again, we put it into something called a procedure. And we can actually just call that procedure then anytime we want. So I'm going to collapse this again, and we can go over here to procedures, and I can pull out just this little block that is analog send. And now if I put this into a program, let's say I want to do an analog send when I push a button. Well, I can put that in that button's holder, and every time I push that button, it's going to call this analog send, and we don't have all this code under here on this little thing. It's just a nice, neat little block, but actually it is going to do all this stuff. So it keeps our code nice and neat, and it helps us to understand things a little bit better. Procedures. Now, I don't need this analog send right now. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it down in the trash can here. And you can see the trash can takes it. It's a little tricky sometimes to get things to go into the trash. You have to make sure that trash can cover opens. So I threw that away. We actually do not need it for what we're going to do. So that's what a procedure is. It's an extremely important concept in computer programming. It makes things nice and neat. It simplifies things that we need to do over and over and over again. Now, there's a number of procedures that I have already written for you. You can see they're all here and they're all collapsed. Let's click on this again, and you can see these procedures all right here. And the important ones that we're going to deal with today have to do with the wheel motors, okay? So we've got this procedure here called stop wheel motors, and guess what that does? Yeah, it'll stop the wheel motors on your robot. And let's pull out another one here and take a look at it. That's the very last one, wheel motors, okay? So when we built our robots, we plugged one of our wheel motors into pin 7. We plugged one of our wheel motors into pin 8, okay? So these are the two that we're going to be dealing with right now. Now you'll notice that this procedure just stops the wheel motors, and we don't have these extra little two sockets here looking for information. So every time that we call this procedure, it's just going to stop. However, this one has got two extra little sockets, and we're going to call those sockets parameters. Those are parameters, okay? So what this does, this procedure calls wheel motors, but it wants to know a number to send to our wheel motors. Now, to explain this, we're going to need to go back over here and look at this slide, okay? The way that Arduino, that's the type of microcontroller, the type of little computer you've got on your robot, has set up the way that it turns motors is to send numbers to it. And the numbers need to be between 0 and 180. If you send one of your motors a 0, it's going to turn in a certain direction. If you send your motor a number of 180, it will turn the opposite direction. It will turn at 0 this direction at full speed. It will turn the other direction at full speed at 180. Then in between, we've got all these other numbers. We've got 0 to 90, and we've got 90 to 180. Somewhere around the 90 point, the motor actually will stop and go very, very slow and change direction. So everything on this side of 90, it's going to be going this direction. Everything on this side of 90, it's going to be going the other direction. And the closer we get to 90 on either side is the speed of the motor. Okay, so let's say we wanted to go full blast this direction with our motor, we would send a 0. If we want to go full blast this direction with our motor, we would send a 180. If we wanted to go slow, we would send something closer to 90. Now, not all the motors stop at 90. They're all a little bit different, so your middle here varies from motor to motor. Now, we've got mounted on our robot 2 motors, and they are mounted in a mirror image of each other. So for one to turn forward while the other is also turning forward, we need to send the opposite number to the other motor. They're mirror imaged of each other the way they're mounted on the robot. So to go forward, we're going to send a 180 to one of the motors and a 0 to the other motor. It depends on how you have your motors plugged in, whether 7 and 8 is left and right, or right and left, or vice versa. So I don't know whether 7 or 8 is going to be 180 and or 7 or 8 is going to be 0. You're going to have to experiment with that as far as forward goes. But let's just say for now that this is my motor number 7. So on number 7, I'm going to send it a 180, and I'm going to send it a 0 to go forward. Then both motors will be turning in the same direction because they are mirror of one another. If I want to go backwards, I'll send one of the motors a 0, just the opposite of going forward, and the other motor a 180. And if I want to do something in between slower, we can send it some other numbers. Usually to get it to go slow, it needs to be pretty close to that 90 number. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense to you. We need to send our motors parameters, these numbers that tell it how to go. Now, so I've got my wheel motors here. I want to make it go forward. So I'm going to grab a number here under math and go all the way to the top, and here's a number. And I'm going to put that into that socket. And I'm going to leave that one at 0. See what happens. And I'll duplicate this little number, and I'll put this one at 180. I don't know for sure if that's going to make my robot go forward or not. So we're at the point where we need to test this out. Does this make our robot go forward, or does it make it go backward, or does it make it do nothing at all? So we're going to need to hook up our phone to do that. So on your phone, you're going to want to start the MIT App Inventor Companion. This is exactly what we've done in the past, and we're going to connect with the AI Companion link here, and you've got the QR code, and you go ahead and you scan that QR code on your phone, and it should upload the program you're working on here to your phone. And a lot of times it takes a little while to get that job done. So we're just going to again pause our video here, and I'll be back as soon as everything's connected. So on your phone, you should see the buttons that we had set up earlier. And down below, you should see the select BT module button and the disconnect button. I can't show you right now because the server gave up here. That was showing what my phone was doing. But you should be seeing that right now on your phone after you upload your app to your phone. So I want you to push select BT module, and you'll see a black screen come up, and listed on there should be your robot. If you're in a classroom full of other robots, you'll see a bunch of them listed there, maybe, but I want you to click on the robot number that is yours, 6352, and go ahead and connect to that. And if you watch your robot, you'll see that the light changes from a flashing pattern that it was doing before to more of a heartbeat pattern. There might be one or two robots that just go solid light at this point. That's all right. That means your robot is connected. If you see that light change, that means your robot just connected. Now, right now on your phone, the buttons won't do anything, but if we go here to App Inventor, on your computer again, and you go to this procedure wheel motors that we filled in 2 parameters for, and if we right click on it, a little menu comes up, and we're going to go down here to do it. And what that's going to do is going to send those 2 parameters to your robot. And hopefully your wheels are now turning. Maybe you can hear mine turning right now. They are turning. It's a good idea if you're working on your robot in this way to kind of put your robot up on a little stand. I use a roll of tape to set it on, and it keeps it off of the floor. If it's moving around right now and you don't want it to be, it's running into walls or whatever, take this call stop wheel motors procedure, right click and click on do it, and the wheels should stop. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, it turns out that my robot was going forward when I made pin 7, 0, and pin 8, 180. So that's great. Now we know that this combination makes my robot go forward. So I'm going to now write my own procedure, because going forward is something that I'm going to want to do over and over and over again. To write a procedure, I just take this very top block, and it's got this little thing here. That's going to let you add parameters if you need parameters, but you don't need parameters. Parameters would be if we wanted to add these 2 things. So don't worry about that little blue box for now, but we're just going to name this procedure forward. And we're going to put this in that forward procedure. And we're going to put it over here with all these other procedures. And we can right click on this again now. And we can collapse it. And now it's out of the way. It's not large and unwieldy. But if we go over here to procedures, you will see that you've now got this little block that you can pull out any old time, and your robot will go forward. We can right click on this and say do it, and it does the very same thing as that other block did, only we don't have to enter those parameters every time. So I'm going to stop my motors here, do it, and I'm going to put that in the trash for now. Okay? So that's pretty simple. So what I want you to do now is I want you to write procedures for backward or reverse. So that's going to be 2 different numbers that you send with this very bottom one here, this wheel motors procedure. Whoops, I lost it. With this wheel motors procedure. So I want you to figure out what numbers to send for pin 7 and pin 8 to make your robot go backward. I want you to figure out what numbers to send for pin 7 and pin 8 to make your robot go right, and what numbers to send for pin 7 and pin 8 to make your robot go left. And then I want you to write procedures, just like we did this forward, for each of those. So you want a forward procedure, a backward procedure, a left procedure, and a right procedure. So you can go ahead and pause this video and do that. If you're having trouble figuring out how to do it, watch the part over again about doing the forward procedure. It's a very similar process, only you're going to be sending different numbers to the wheels. So now we've got all these different procedures, and they're real easy for us to call. One more step here. All we need to do is assign these procedures to the buttons that we had set up earlier. So I'm going to take this forward button. We're going to go way up here and look at these different ways that we can use these buttons. Now, I've found the best way to control these robots, rather than using this forward button when we click it, like we were doing with our other app, with our app that was changing the colors where we were just clicking the button. I have found that the robot works most efficiently when we take this block that says when forward touch down. In other words, when we're holding that button down, it's going to do something. So when we're holding that button down, we're going to find our procedure called forward. And yeah, we're going to go forward. So pretty simple. When it's touched down. When that forward button is not touched down, we don't want it to be going, we want it to stop. So we've got another one here, forward touch up, and we want to stop the motors. Now if you go ahead and go to your phone, and if you push the forward button, your robot should go forward while you're holding that button down and stop when you are not pushing that button. So now I want you to do something similar for your other procedures that you wrote. Use the left button, the right button, and the backward button, and the touch up and touch down properties of those. And on all of them, your touch up is going to be stop wheel motors. On the others, when you call forward, you're going to call forward. When you call backward, you're going to call backward. When you call left, you're going to do left. And when you call right, you're going to do right. So it's that simple. Now you should have a robot that moves around as you push down and hold those buttons. Okay, so that's the concepts for today. If you didn't make it to that Wednesday evening class, I'm hoping that you are able to have this all set to go when we get together again at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. So if you have questions, go ahead and review this. If the review does you no good, well, that's okay. Just go ahead and you can call me on my phone, especially during the day at work. I'm usually at work until about 6 p.m. You'll always catch me there. Or just drop me an email, the email that you'll find at the Robotics is Fun website. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Okay, so that's it, and we will see you next time.